Hello, everyone. This is Chevy.
And this is Key. And we're back to have a discussion with y'all about being in a relationship with a 20-year difference. Or it could be 10 years, 7 years, 14 years, whatever you may have in your relationship. But we wanted to discuss some of the challenges and some of the benefits of having such I would say, big age difference. What would you
Well,
like to say, Chef?
one of the benefits is having the older person involved um, creates a scene of experiences that the older person has been through that maybe the younger one has yet to experience. Um, Relationships, the older person may have a more enlightened view
Okay,
of a relationship.
okay. And they may have gone through situations that has basically brought them to a point where their perspective
And understanding.
and understanding allows for them to be more patient, um, be more of a guiding light for the other person within the relationship. Like, just say, for instance, with Chevy and I, he's 20 years older than me. Exactly. And by the time Chevy and I started dating, I was in my very early 30s. I just turned 30, about to turn 31. And he was 50. So he was at a point in his life where he already was married and divorced, but also he was just at a point in his life where he was a little more settled in terms of his perspective of life. He wasn't trying to chase a dream, chase success. He pretty much had it, lived his life in his 20s, 30s, and 40s, and attained a lot, acquired a lot of knowledge, had a different level of experience professionally. And so he was more grounded, I would say, in terms of who he was as a person, as a man, what he accomplished in life. Not to say that he didn't have things that he still wanted to pursue in terms of his personal goals.
Hmm.
And I'll let you elaborate on that. But I believe that Chevy was at a good point in his life when I met him. And so he was able to help me navigate my 30s. And it wasn't until I got into my 40s that I realized the benefits of being with Chevy. At first I was like, he's too old for me. I was resistant in the beginning. But in starting to talk and have many conversations and see that we were very aligned as far as our outlook on life, our
Well, part of it is I was looking for someone that was receptive to the things that I had been through or done, and the things that I would like to accomplish. So
at
that,
that point, yeah.
yeah, that made a huge difference in the relationship. So I was very happy to meet a 30-year-old that was not the norm, let's say.
What would you mean? What do you mean by the norm?
um,
Elaborate for them. And you're talking about in relationship to being a 30-year old. I wasn't the normal 30-year old.
right. Um, I didn't realize it at the time, but the first day I met her, um, I knew that she had 4 children, and that's before we even started talking.
And he knew that because I would carry a photograph of my children on the dashboard in my car.
Right.
And so
And
he saw that, and we probably should just give the background as to how we met.
yeah, um, I was called out to do a tow job that another employee of the company had gone out on, and she was within 5 minutes stuck again.
Right.
And
2 or 3 minutes up the road.
so I went out there and assisted her and found someone that I thought I liked pretty good. And
You thought.
yeah, I thought I liked her
He
pretty
knew
good.
that he liked what he saw.
Yeah, and I was very gentlemanly to her, and
He really
I
was, though.
I helped her to her father to go to her father
To basically,
to so that he could take her wherever she needed to go. But I covered her in that respect. So um,
meaning he waited until my father, he took me to a point of a parking
meeting,
lot,
yeah,
yeah, where my father picked me up because I was about 30 minutes away um, from where my father was. So he just drove to a central location where my father could then just pick me up from that location. And then he took my car onto the
repair shop.
repair shop. And then I went on. My father then took me to work. So yeah, we got a chance to talk, and he had his moment to, come on to me
Come
and
on.
to present himself as, well, the guy who wants to get, not even, and that's another thing. And I learned, I knew the game, but I didn't know it as well, obviously, back then as I know now. But he presented himself in such a gentleman way. Still, I feel he should have asked for my number, but he wanted to play it
No.
safe. He knew that the chance of me saying no was great, so he gave me his number on the back of the business card.
Yeah. So
So the bottom line is, we met each other with him, and it's kind of funny, but when you look at it, it's kind of like
she
rescuing
called
me
me to find out to try to prove that I was married.
to try to
That
prove. No,
yeah.
no, no. Tell it the way it really
Okay. Well,
is.
you tell it.
I called you about, it could have been 3 weeks later.
Hmm.
Um, what happened? Okay, so we can go through
A
this
lot
real
of
quick.
patience. A lot of patience.
My vehicle was supposedly fixed, then not fixed, and fixed and not fixed. It was like the long, drawn out mechanics game that they play. But anyway, this one day I pull out the card to just, I'm going through my purse really. I pull out the card for the mechanic tow shop or whatever. And I said, yeah, let me call this guy. I bet you he's married anyway. 50-year old. I knew that he was considerably older than me. Didn't know exactly how old he was at that point. He told me once we went out on a date, but I knew he was considerably older. But make a long story short, he, like I said, wrote his number
I
on the
want
back
a
of the
heart.
card.
I want a heart. That's
He basically answers the phone, and I'm thinking, okay, something's up with this guy. I think he's basically married. But that was just my mindset for a guy that old. And once again, I'm a 30-year-old. He's a 50-year-old. I'm thinking most likely he's married. But to make a long story short, when I call, um, we basically have, it's like an hour or hour and a half phone conversation, and it was very, I would say, it was refreshing to be able to talk to someone that much older without feeling like, oh God, this is like, well, I wouldn't have been on the phone that long. I don't think we would have been on the phone that long if it was boring or mundane. But we got past the point of the initial conversation, and I said, yeah, okay, well, I don't think he's married, but you never know. But at that point, he did ask me if I wanted to come to his church, and he invited me to church for that coming Sunday. And by the time that I called, yeah, it was a good 3 weeks after our initial meeting. So fast forward, the next Sunday or that coming Sunday, we go to church. And then what happens?
Well, you had some computer issues, and I came by to
Well,
help with the computer.
you're fast forwarding to that when we went. Basically, he's leaving out the vital part of the beginning of the framework of our
Well, we went to
relationship.
church together.
We went to church, yeah, but we also have this area. We were living in Fort Lauderdale, and there's an area where there's a corporate air strip where people do the private planes,
Hmm.
flying in and out. And so some people like to go out there and just, watch the planes as they are ascending or descending or whatever. And we went out there and we sat for, I want to say, a good hour or two. And what I like is one thing that, for me, that
No pressure.
I'm driven by is intellect.
No pressure.
What do you mean?
There
For
was no
you?
pressure on you.
No pressure on me?
Yeah, about getting together and all that. We just.
No, yeah, I never felt that it was pressure, but I never felt like it was. I was never uncomfortable. I
Mhm.
never felt that he was this dirty old man. I never felt as if he was 20 years older than me. As I spent more time with Chevy, the age gap started to decrease. Not by, I would say, 20 years, of course. I knew he still was older just being in his presence, but sometimes you can get lost in thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is 20 years older than me. He's so, fuddy duddy or whatever. But what we're basically getting at is the benefit, one of the benefits in my mind of having such a huge age difference is Chevy is looking back. And being with me, he's looking back. He can't help but look back because he's already been there, done that in so many ways. There's a lot of things that he's experienced for the first time with me, but there's a whole lot of things that he has already experienced before meeting me. And so he looks back over his life, I think, in doing things with me again. The things that he's experienced, and now he's doing it again with me. And he's really good and patient. Chevy is a he takes patience to a whole nother level though. But he's able to guide me in certain areas, and I didn't come to this realization for a good 5 years, unfortunately, of how he was helping me navigate through not telling me, well, you should do this or you should do that, because he's not a dictator by no means. He was helping me navigate through more of just being that patient listening ear and responding in such a very gentle and just very low key. The way Chevy would go about telling me something, it was almost like I have to think about it later. Wait a minute. He told me this, because it never came across as him trying to direct me, force me, or dictate and be like, well, I know you should do this, you should do that. He never came across that way. So that's one of the biggest pros for me.
And still don't.
Oh yeah, that's just not who you are. On the other hand, I'm more so like bossy. But
She's very bossy.
one of the major benefits of being 20 years apart is that we're not looking through the same glass at the same time with the same experience. And I guess I can just break it down like this. Chevy, when I met him, like I said, okay, he was 50, and I'm about to be 50 soon. So Chevy was able to look at anything that we were doing and pretty much already have the cheat code, right? For 90% of what we were experiencing, he already, been there. Maybe not the exact same experiences, but something similar. And here it is. He's able to go through it already pretty much knowing what probably is going to happen. It's like the cheat code. And for him, and I'll let him elaborate and explain if he feels that it was what your feelings are on experiencing some things for a second time with me. But I look at it as it was cool to be with someone who already knew, but he also let me enjoy it and he did not diminish those experiences.
I wouldn't look at them as experiencing stuff that I've been through. I look at it as mm, new experiences all the way,
Okay.
and just figuring out, understanding the best way to approach whatever it was.
Hmm.
Um, some of my experiences in the past weren't good. Okay,
Okay. Right. Right.
so I I I would say that maybe I modified
Hmm.
my approach to make them where they weren't pressuring
Okay.
or as, I guess, as crazy as some of the things that I've experienced were.
Right. You were able to modify and change up your approach so
Hmm.
you could have better outcomes
Yes,
and more
based on my
pleasurable.
experiences.
Right. And then, of course, you was just with such a dope female woman. So, of course, it was going to be great. But some of the downside of having not just an age difference, because I mean, a lot of people are 1 year, 2 year, 4 years apart. The 20 years started to show to me a negative side once I got to be about 42. Once I got to my 40s, and I'm about 41, 42, and here it is, Chevy is now in his 60s, I started to see some of the negative downside to having such a large age gap. Once Chevy got ill, which was just 3, 4 years ago, it really started to be where for me, I'm going to speak for me, it started to be more of, I don't want any part of this.
Mm.
Not the part about him getting ill, but the part about how we were in, I mean, completely different rooms. I'm not talking about physically, literally, I'm talking about figuratively. We were in different spaces in life. where I just could not relate. I started to see the disconnect. Chevy being approaching Medicare age, and here I am. I'm just getting my second win. I'm early 40s, and I'm like feeling just rejuvenated and ready to travel slowly but surely. Our children were graduating from high school, going off to college, and I looked up, and it's like, I don't know. I just could not relate to him as well as when I was in my 30s and he was in his 50s.
Hmm.
It was almost like I was with a guy that is too old for me. It had reared its head by the time I got to be about 42. I started feeling it.
And then I got sick.
And then he got sick 2 years later. And so by the time I'm 44, I'm in a really good point in life. I mean, my 40s have been incredible. I wouldn't trade my 40s for anything. I'm wiser than I was in my 30s and my 20s, obviously. I'm more successful. Started a couple of businesses and was able to navigate and have my career and just have different things professionally going on that were just awesome. However, I felt the tempo was slowing down with our relationship.